Hi, I'm Big Ben, and welcome to this week's episode of Equip Tips. This week's episode is going to be geared toward backing up memory cards and backing up your photos in a digital workflow. Digital photos. We now don't use film anymore. We are in the process of shooting on a digital card. In most situations, either a compact flash card or an SD card. Both of these are viable solutions, and that's why most camera manufacturers use these. A couple tips of the trade I'm going to tell you right now to get the best out of these. One, if you're shooting still photography, I highly recommend you shoot on small cards. And when I mean small cards, I mean small capacity cards. And that is because if you are to corrupt a card and you have an 8 GB card which holds, roughly hundreds and hundreds or even 1,000 photos, what's going to happen if that card corrupts and now you've lost 1,000 photos of that wedding? Versus if I were to shoot on a 2 GB card, which this roughly holds about 80 raw images, if this card was to corrupt, I'm only losing 80 photos, and I probably still have the wedding ceremony or that precious kid being born or whatever your dreamy moment is of that time, to where you're not going to be losing it. So by shooting on a small card, it forces me to change them out every 80 images. So if one does corrupt or one does go bad, I'm not going to lose those images. So if you're shooting video or shooting, HD high capacity cards or shooting video, that's a whole different world. But as far as still photography, I recommend shooting on either 1 or 2 GB cards. I keep roughly about 5 of them in my workflow, and as I fill them up, I just put in the next one and put the other one out of service to make sure it doesn't get written. Another tip that is very viable for shooting on any type of digital media is to make sure that you are formatting your cards, meaning you've unloaded your pictures, you're ready to erase them so you can start another session. Make sure that you are formatting your cards in your camera. Don't be formatting your cards either in your Mac OS or in your Windows system. You need to be formatting your cards appropriately in camera. And I recommend, it might just be a pet peeve of mine, format them 2 or 3 times to make sure you get everything cleared off of them. Another good tip of the trade that I have found through my experience is to never fill up a card all the way. Usually leave space for 1 or 2 photos. As you're shooting, make sure you keep an eye on that LCD screen and see how many photos you have left on that card. When I get down to 2, 3, or 5 photos, I'll go ahead and kick the card out and put another one in. In my experience, I've had cards tend to corrupt more when I fill them all the way to 0 and there's no room left on them. As far as keeping your cards safe, I recommend getting a separate holder for your cards. This one's made by Pelican. Being a big guy like me and sitting on stuff and squashing stuff all the time and breaking furniture, I absolutely recommend a Pelican case. This is waterproof. It has a gasket around it, to keep water. It floats if it needs to be floatable, and it keeps my cards safe. As soon as I am done shooting and fill up a card, I will take the card out of my camera and go ahead and flip it upside down, put it into that case, and now I know, because the label's face down, I know that card's been written on, so I know not to take it out and start shooting on it again and possibly overwriting or going through the frustration of realizing that it's a full card. Another reason why I keep my cards in a separate location is because thieves are out there and cameras tend to run away every once in a while. In our little hometown here of Salt Lake City, last year we had a large stint of people stealing cameras off people's necks. I'm talking literally thieves coming up and cutting the cameras off of photographers' necks and running with them. What's the problem with this? One, if you can't defend yourself, you're out your camera. But the worst part is you just lost those images you were shooting. So as soon as I am done with the photo shoot, even with the last memory card, I make sure I eject my card from the camera, put it put it in my memory card case, and it goes in my pocket, and it stays in my pocket till I get to my workstation or a place where I can now back up these images. I never leave my images in my camera. I never leave them in the trunk of my car. These stay with me, on me, just as if it was a purse or a wallet, until I get back to my studio where I can work on them. So now, say like we've got back to your house or to your studio or to your apartment, wherever you might be, and you now need to, first thing I do, I need to back up my images. Now there are a lot of filled options out there as far as some of the Epson hard drives out there and stuff to where you can back them up. Those are starting to fade out now because with the introduction of the iPad and other tablet and portable devices with built-in hard drives, people are now able to back up their images to those devices. I don't have one of those. I feel pretty confident with my memory card, so as soon as I get home, or if I'm on a location wedding, I don't hesitate to bring my laptop or my MacBook with me to go ahead and back up my photos. So the first step in my process, so I take out all my memory cards. I would insert them into a memory card reader, and I don't have the cord laying, so I'm just going to pretend. And I would import all my photos into Lightroom or Bridge or whatever you're using. With the introduction of Lightroom within the import dialog box, we have the option of backing up our images to a second location besides the primary location that we're pulling them into for our Lightroom catalog. And I highly recommend backing them up either to a second or even better an external hard drive. As you import your photos, it's automatically going to copy them to a second hard drive for you. Now you have 2 copies of those photos. Once I have copied those photos and they are off the memory cards that are on my hard disk, I then get a blank DVD and make a data DVD and burn those raw images to a disk. Those disks go to an off-site location, to a safety deposit box. If you don't have one of those, over to, a friend's house or, family member's house, to where they can keep them for you in case your house burns down. This is just one of those steps that it's an insurance policy for yourself that I think you should take. With my workflow, that's how I do it. So it goes from my camera to my memory card to my laptop's internal hard drives to an external hard drive, my external hard drive to a data DVD, and to the data DVD goes to my safety deposit box off-site in the event of fire or natural disaster. A couple other tips when dealing with memory cards is to make sure you take care of these. They are pretty hardy, but let's talk about a lot of your Pro-end DSLR cameras still use compact flash cards versus SD cards. Compact flash cards are extremely durable. They're a lot more hardier than I think an SD card. The issue is that they use a male and female pin system to connect with each other. And you have the female end on your flash card, which is a bunch of holes. And then within your memory card reader or your camera, you're going to have those pins. Take caution when you insert your memory card into your camera, because that compact flash card, if you don't insert it right all the time, you might bend those pins, and then you're going to be out of camera and you're going to have to send it in for service so they can replace that board in there, which probably is not cheap. The other thing to make sure of is to make sure that there's no dirt in here. Don't be sticking these in your pocket, guys. I know you do this all the time. Don't put them in your change pocket of your Levi's for lint to get in there. Make sure you keep your camera clean. Make sure you keep those contacts clean. Keep your door shut when you're not using it. When we're talking about SD cards, instead of a pin system where pins are actually being inserted in the card, this actually works on a contact basis where you actually have brass contacts, copper or gold contacts across the card to where they're going to meet and touch within the card reader or your camera. Same thing goes with these. Keep these clean, make sure they're safe, don't get pocket lint on them, and make sure these don't sit on the dash of your car or in your pocket or in your purse for long periods of time, because they can corrupt. So what happens when a memory card corrupts? Sooner or later, it might have not happened to you yet, but it can happen, and it probably is going to happen. Well, the good news is that there is software out there that you can find online. Some of it's free and some of it does cost a bit, that will actually recover your memory card for you. It can go in there, it'll read, and it'll try to find bits and pieces of those files that may be corrupt or missing. Use only this as a last resort, and if that doesn't work and you can't get your photos back, At least you shot it on a 2 GB card so you didn't lose the whole event. I'm Big Ben with Equip Tips. Thanks for joining in and learning a little bit about memory cards. Remember, shoot on small cards, keep them clean, format only in the camera, and don't fill them up all the way. Join us next week as we talk a little bit about histograms and the wondrous world of exposure in the field.